Home. Morning again, Dana. Deadliest day in 10 years for our forces in Afghanistan. Here is where we stand at this hour. We're waiting to hear from the Pentagon. That's due in 30 minutes. We're waiting to hear from the House Republican leader, Kevin McCarthy. That could happen at any time.
And President Biden, just a short time ago, wrapping up an early meeting with his national security advisors as he gets ready to greet Israel's new prime minister. They were supposed to meet yesterday, but the airport massacre, of course, changed everything.
So all this as the flights continue to take off from Kabul. We have seen 3 in the past hour, but the chances to get out are fading quickly. Much like the Afghan setting sun at this hour, many of our U.S. allies already ending their evacuation efforts there.
Meanwhile, anxious crowds outside the airport are keenly aware the window is closing to board a flight before the airlift ends and U.S. troops go home. President Biden ignoring his critics and just refusing to change his mind.
I have never been of the view that we should be sacrificing American lives to try to establish a democratic government in Afghanistan.
They trusted the Taliban to protect Americans. We never did that. We trusted America to protect America's interests at every turn.
As far as what has happened that led us to this position, Joe Biden is to blame. I think Robert Gates said it best. There hasn't been a foreign policy decision Joe Biden's made in the last 40 years that's been any good. So when you project weakness from the Oval Office, as Joe Biden does, bad guys do bad things.
Trey Yingst with the latest. He is live in Doha, Qatar. Hi, Trey. Good morning.
Dana, good morning. Those explosions yesterday killing 13 U.S. service members and at least 95 Afghans. Overnight, local hospitals treating dozens of people who were wounded outside of the Abbey Gate and the Baron Hotel. Despite the tragic bombings yesterday at the airport, evacuations are ongoing. The Pentagon says more than 12,000 people were airlifted out of Kabul in the past 24 hours alone, bringing the total since the rescues began to more than 100,000 people. But the clock is ticking. On Tuesday, American forces are supposed to leave Afghanistan, and there are still thousands of people trying to flee. Sources on the ground say the Taliban has expanded their perimeter outside of the airport. There are attempts to slow the flow of people to the airport. One person in Kabul added that the situation could deteriorate rapidly at any minute, with numerous things going wrong. There is an understanding that some civilian flights to Kabul could resume after the Americans leave, but they would be limited and would need to be controlled by a player like Turkey or Pakistan. Once the critical lifeline of air evacuation ceases, thousands could flee on foot. The United Nations estimates and that's 500,000 Afghans could leave the country across land borders. We've already seen on the border with Pakistan people lining up trying to flee the Taliban. It really gives you a sense just how desperate these people are to leave. Dana?
All right, Trey, I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot of you today. Thank you.
For more on this now, I want to bring in 2 men who know this better than most. Army combat veteran Alex Plitzis and former Army Ranger Matthew Griffin. Greg Stubbe may join us in a moment, too. But, gentlemen, thank you and good morning. I think for the sake of where we are in America, I just want to gain an understanding for what your perspectives are as to where we've been, where we are as of yesterday, and where we're headed. And I want to remind our viewers that the United Nations said in June that anywhere between 8,000 and 10,000 jihadi fighters moved into Afghanistan. That happened over the summer. So now you got Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, you got ISIS-K, you got the Haqqani network, you got all this stuff now. Alex, I'll begin with you. Where are we headed?
Sure. Well, I think we're headed to a very precarious situation. I think one of the assistant secretaries of state who was responsible for the Afghan evac yesterday, I believe, stated there's 4,100 Americans that they're aware of who are in country, and that's just the people that have at least registered their presence with the government. In order to meet that 8/31 deadline, at some point they're going to have to shut access to the airport, disposition everyone that's there, kind of take care of the paperwork and fly them out. So what comes next is that we have, as you mentioned, ISIS-K obviously yesterday was responsible for the attack. They don't get along with the Taliban. It's our one saving grace that we're at least the enemy of my enemy is my friend in that case. Elements of Al-Qaeda and whatnot, and we will no longer have a functioning embassy. We won't have military personnel on the ground. And so the biggest concern I've got is that the administration's position, at least at this point, is that after that 8/31 deadline, we're going to have to rely on cooperation with the Taliban to get people to leave. And as you mentioned, we've seen them deny access to the airport. They've been beating and whipping people, including Americans, including a pregnant American I helped to try to get on the base, the air base yesterday. So definitely worried about long-term for potential hostage situations. That was part of my policy portfolio at the Pentagon for oversight. And 4,100 Americans in a country that is still, lacking a lot of infrastructure and control with terrorists operating is a very dangerous situation to find yourself in.
Matt Griffin, you've worked tirelessly to try to get interpreters out. What will happen now if the channel to get to the airport closes? What will happen to those efforts?
The channel to get to the airport is closed. We lost 5 people yesterday trying to make the run, and that IED was so big that it had to have been sitting there for at least a week, which means it was planned. I think most people are ignoring the international influence that is going on in the area right now. We believe that Iran, through the Khorasan group, might have some influence. Pakistan, obviously, they control the Taliban, and they're funded by the United States, so we need to be leaning on them diplomatically to control things. But there's no way that ISIS-K planned this out, because they just got released from prison last week in Afghanistan. So there's just so many international players right now that it's chaotic, and our intelligence community doesn't have a good picture on what's going on. And meanwhile, we're flying thousands and thousands and thousands of people to the United States. And from what we're learning from our sources on the inside is that the Office of Special Investigations that's interviewing people say stories aren't lining up, and then people are being released into our communities. So, I mean, this is an international incident that's going to have domino effects that we still can't even comprehend at the moment.
Matthew, you said something there that I had not heard before, and we're not reporting that. You're saying an IED was planted there a week ago at the airport? How do you know that?
There was no way that they could have gotten a bomb that big in the area. With the congestion on that road, that was a vehicle-borne IED, and that road was stacked for a week. We were getting reports of a threat multiple days before that actual bomb went off of that size. So there's no way that it could have drove in. It had to have been there for a long period of time and then to go off.
Okay, so clearly a question for the Pentagon when the briefing starts in 20 minutes. Okay. Greg Stubbe joins our conversation now. Greg, thank you for your time. We spoke a few days ago. Where are we headed? Where are we going?
Well, it's not going to go a good place now. I think we've got some hardship ahead. I'm really struggling with a couple things. Number one, have we forgotten what the Taliban have been doing to us for 20 years? Have we forgotten the law that they live by? And in an age and an administration that seems to abide by wokeness, where we cancel our own citizens, our own people, entertainers, athletes, CEOs, coaches, for something they said 20 years ago, but now we're coalescing and we're cooperating with the Taliban that's been cutting our heads off for 20 years. And then we throw red flags up for ISIS-K. And I say it's radical Islam. It's terrorism. We're being affected by it no matter who's doing it. And in this situation, withdrawing is the only thing we can do. So we need to spend less time diagnosing that and more time protecting our people from an obvious threat. I don't see why ISIS-K is such a big red herring. It doesn't matter which group it is right now. If we were staying, it would.
Yeah. Alex, here's what the commander-in-chief said yesterday. From the White House, he said this.
To those who carried out this attack, as well as anyone who wishes America harm, know this: we will not forgive. We will not forget. We will hunt you down and make you pay.
Alex, I don't know how that happens if you're leaving the country. As Dana would say, you need eyes and ears on the ground to get the intel that's required to go after those who want to do you harm. And it seems like we are doing exactly the opposite.
Well, yes, I think so with retrograde operations, right? So we've lost our remote bases in all the areas of the country. We're operating solely out of the airfield in Kabul. The embassy is closed and the military presence will end. We've had military intelligence on the ground for 20 years. That's not exactly a state secret, and they're going to be gone now. And so there are countries all over the world where we have intelligence professionals who work where we don't have a military presence, but this is a austere, hostile environment right now. And I think the words that the president used yesterday, I think they also reflect where I think there was a serious failure here. So I firmly believe, and I think most Americans do based on polling, that President Trump's decision to withdraw was correct, as President Biden's was, to be honest with you. Both of them came to the right conclusion. The issue that we take here is with how the retrograde was conducted. So when we closed all of our remote bases, right, we started collapsing back towards the main bases and the airfields, which is very logical. You move from your outermost places in. We didn't take any of the vulnerable Afghans who worked with us, who have been cleared and vetted, our interpreters who've passed the background checks and we know aren't going to pose a security threat. nor did we make a significant effort to get the American citizens that are still there out. And so now you've got people trapped all over the country trying to figure out how they're going to get to Kabul. And then even when they get there, like you mentioned, the airport is being closed. So how you conduct military operations to strike at these groups, or more importantly, if we have to conduct rescue operations for Americans who are left behind when we have no presence in country, we've got a very narrow air corridor in Pakistan that they've allowed us to use for years and limited air access from other regional caucus states. Yeah, it is not going to be a quick reaction force like we've had in the past, and this is going to be extremely dangerous.
Matt, you're a former Army Ranger. You guys don't give up. What would you say to your other, your fellow veterans who are maybe possibly struggling in this moment?
Yeah, we're pretty bold about it, and we say don't give those pricks the satisfaction of taking one more American life.
Hear, hear.
We've stayed in this fight. We need to stay in it.
Yeah. Greg?
Right now, I'd like all of us as veterans to do two things. Number one, understand that it's not about us. These days, we've all volunteered to serve something greater than ourselves, and we've fought for love and compassion. We love freedom, and we have compassion for the human condition anywhere on the planet. That's a good fight that we don't ever have to regret. The other thing is that when I say it's not about us, we don't need to look inwards as veterans and think that it's just us. It's not. We're one team in one fight, and to leave no one behind is less of a military credo than it is the American way. Even terminally ill children here, we support them and put resources into them until their last breath because we love each other.
Thank you, man. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Again and again. Alec Plitzis, Matthew Griffin, and Greg Stubbe. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for having me.
Waiting on the Pentagon, waiting on the president. A lot moving this hour. Kevin McCarthy's
I'd show you that
coming up shortly.
the New York
too,
Post
well.
cover today, nightmare, and I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah. Wall Street Journal, Kabul airport massacre. What a position for the U.S. to be in, relying on the victorious enemy that spent years trying to kill Americans to detect jihadists bent on killing Americans. Oh, the irony.
Sobering wake-up call.
I tell you, yesterday, we were here all day, and initially we heard of casualties, and we were hoping for the best. And as the hours wore on throughout the afternoon, the headlines just got worse and worse. And then you hear about Americans injured. Then you hear about American casualty. And then it went from 3 to 4, and then 4 to 10, and 10 to 12, and ultimately 13. And then on the Afghan side, you had all these people there trying to rely on the Marines and the soldiers to get them to safety. And they'd take any ticket they can get, Dana. Germany, got it. Qatar, I'll take it. United States, you bet out. Canada, sign me up. And the Afghans lost more than 90 people at one time. And there's the after effect of the images that we can show you. Online, there's a lot more that are brutal. I'm not going to take the time to look at them. I don't think you do either. So we just want to remember them all today again.
So it's 10:14. We are just minutes away from a Pentagon briefing on the situation in Afghanistan. Of course, we will bring that to you live as it begins.
Also, Dana, new details on this group, ISIS-K, that's claimed responsibility, the tactics they use to maximize casualties, and what it means for the troops who are still guarding that airport at this hour with the sun setting in Kabul.
I've been warning for 2 weeks now that we can't trust the Taliban to conduct security at the airport or to help secure our citizens in Kabul. And we saw the consequences of that yesterday.
This is a VA mortgage rate watch. New Day's rates have dropped to the lowest in their history, 2.25%, just 2.48 APR. Refinance now and save thousands.
Call 1-833-804-3643.
I felt awful because of my psoriasis. I was covered from head to toe with it. It really hurt. Then I started Cosentix. That was 4 years ago.
How are you?
See me.
Cosentix works fast to give you clear skin that can last. Real people with psoriasis look and feel better with Cosentix. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentix. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections, some serious, and the lowered ability to fight them may occur. Tell your doctor about an infection or symptoms, or if you've had a vaccine or plan to. Tell your doctor if your Crohn's disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions may occur.
I look and feel better.
Ask your dermatologist if Cosentyx could help you move past the pain of psoriasis.
Oh, are you using Liberty Mutual's coverage customizer tool? So you only pay for what you need.
Sorry?
Limo, you're an animal!
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Let's take a little test together. Which looks better, this or this? This or this? Seems clear to me. Saving cash beats spending it unwisely every time, which is why you'll love this offer from America's Best. Buy 2 pairs of glasses for just $69.95, and they'll throw in an eye exam for free. It's a savings of at least $50. That's not just a better deal, it's America's Best. Book an exam online today at americasbest.com.
We did it again. Verizon has been named America's most reliable network by RootMetrics. And our customers rated us #1 for network quality in America, according to J.D. Power. #1 in reliability 16 times in a row. Most awarded for network quality 27 times in a row. Proving once again that nobody builds networks like Verizon. That's why we're building 5G right. That's why there's only one best network.
I was getting run down. I was coaching. I coach all the time. I work early in the morning. I needed energy. So I started taking Balance of Nature, and I could coach better. I could hit the ball harder at my players. I can make an overhand serve, which I have not been able to do in a long time. And my players noticed too, like, wow, you've got more energy.
Balance of Nature does give me that peace of mind. Instead of trying to isolate certain vitamins and minerals, you're taking the whole thing. I think it's the closest thing to actually eating real fruit and vegetables.
With Balance of Nature, immediately I noticed that my energy levels picked up. Even with not a lot of sleep, I could function and be the mom I needed to be for my son.
Start your journey with the best fruit and vegetable product on the market by going to balanceofnature.com or by calling 1-800-2468-751. And don't forget to get 35% off your first order as a